The second part of our human body system survey is the immune system. The immune system is the body's response to foreign invaders. A foreign invader can be a bacteria, a virus, or a chemical such as a pollutant that invades the body. The body has two types of defenses, innate and adaptive immunity. An innate response or innate immunity is instinctive. This means that the body recognizes that the virus or the bacteria is a foreign body or a pathogen, but it doesn't recognize it specifically. This means that the body recognizes a virus, but it doesn't recognize it as a cold virus. Because the response is general, it's responding to just a virus, the body can respond faster and begin to defend itself more quickly. The problem is that because it's a general response, it may not be as efficient. Adaptive immunity occurs when the body actually recognizes the pathogen for what it is. For example, this is a cold virus. It's able to do this because back in the past, the organism's ancestors were exposed to this same pathogen. Because of this, the organism already has defense molecules in place. They were created in the past by the ancestors' bodies when they saw the pathogen. Adaptive immunity responses are pathogen specific, meaning that the response is specific to each individual foreign body. This happens because the pathogen has what's called an antigen on its surface. An antigen, A-N-T-I-G-E-N, is a protein. It acts like a cell surface identity marker. It says, this is a cold virus. An antibody then is produced by the organism. The antibody is also a protein. It's produced by the host, and it will be attached to the antigen of that foreign body. The antibody will attach to that antigen, break it down, and turn off or kill that foreign body. So keep in mind that antigens trigger the body's immune response by having the body create antibodies. Because each antibody is specific to each antigen, the body's response is slower, even though those responses are already technically in place. The body's first line of defense is the skin and the linings of the respiratory and digestive tracts. If a pathogen gets past these, then the immune system is activated. The first immune system that will be activated is the innate or instinctive system. It's the innate system because it's always at the ready. There are always some type of defensive molecules ready to respond to a foreign invader. This results in a fast recognition of that foreign body and allows the body to respond rapidly and begin to get rid of that invader before, hopefully, the body gets too sick. Once that pathogen has been recognized, there are several types of defense molecules available for the innate immune system. I'm going to talk about two, the phagocytic leukocytes and the natural killer or NK cells. The phagocytic leukocytes, also called macrophages, will consume any foreign invaders in the same process that the cell used for ingesting large food particles. I'm talking about the process of phagocytosis, where the cell's membrane expands around the foreign particle, engulfs it, and consumes it. The natural killer, or NK cells, will actually attach to that foreign body, that pathogen, get inside it, and force it into the process of apoptosis, basically making the cell commit suicide. Once the innate immune system has been activated, the body's secondary system, the adaptive immune response, will also be activated. It will begin by identifying the antigen. The antigen is a protein that is located on the cell membrane of the virus or the bacteria that's invading the body. The antigen is specific to the invader. So once that antigen has been identified, later on, years from now, when that antigen is seen again, the body can immediately respond because it will remember it. That response involves the creation of an antibody. The antibody is specific to the antigen. The antibody will attach to the antigen, and through a process that I will discuss in the next few slides, that invader will be destroyed. The primary agents of the adaptive immune response are the lymphocytes. These are white blood cells that are located in the bone marrow. There are two types of lymphocytes, T cells and B cells, and each of these lymphocytes responds to pathogens in their own way. The T cells will regulate or control the response of other immune cells or will directly attack the foreign body. These are a part of the cell-mediated immunity system. B cells will respond to the antigens by secreting antibodies, and they are found in the humoral immunity process. We're now going to look at the adaptive immunity system and start with the cell-mediated immunity process. Here's how it works. A pathogen gets past the primary physical barrier, like the skin. It would encounter the innate immune system first. The innate immune system would begin to destroy it using the macrophages, those cells that consume foreign bodies through phagocytosis. But the body likes a backup plan, which in this case is the adaptive immune system. So after the macrophage consumes the pathogen, it leaves a bit of the pathogen's identity marker on its own membrane. This activates the body's adaptive immune response without having to use actual pathogens. This is when the cell-mediated immune system steps in. The T cells of the cell-mediated immune system that encounter the macrophages that have the pathogen's antigen on its membrane become activated. An activated T cell will begin to clone itself. It will create cytotoxic T cells, memory T cells, and helper T cells. Cytotoxic T cells will recognize and destroy the non-self or foreign invading cells. Some will do this through direct attack. They will actually attach to and destroy the cell. Some will attach to the cell, force their way through the membrane, and cause the infecting cell to go through apoptosis. Memory T cells will be created to remember the antigen of the virus or the bacteria so that when they encounter it again, the body's response will be faster and more efficient. Helper T cells will also be created. These will create more T cells so the immune response is faster and more efficient, and it will also activate the B cells of the humoral response. The humoral response is a response to the antigens that are found on the membranes of invading cells or floating freely in the blood. When B cells encounter these antigens, they become activated, just like T cells. If the B cells aren't activated, the helper T cells from the cell-mediated immune response will activate them. Once the B cell has been activated, a group of genetically identical cells, or a clone, is created. The clone is capable of recognizing and responding to that antigen. Once the clone has been created, it grows and differentiates or changes into more specific cells called plasma cells. The plasma cells will produce the antibodies that are specific matches to the antigens. These clones will also differentiate into memory cells. These memory cells are just like the memory cells of the cell-mediated response. They will be used by the body to recognize this particular pathogen should it come back again. And again, this will make the immune response faster and more effective than it was the first time. The antibodies of the humoral immune system are specific to the antigen that activated the B cell. These antibodies are Y-shaped protein. The proteins are made up of regions that are called constant and variable. The constant areas, which are these areas here, here, and here, remain the same. These are the amino acids or the proteins that make up the body of the antibody. The variable portions here, here, and here are shaped to specifically match their antigen. They work by attaching to the antigen. This attachment inactivates the antigen and marks it as a non-self cell. Once inactivated and marked as non-self, a white blood cell or a macrophage will find it and destroy it through phagocytosis. Once the immune system has begun to take over and win the battle against the foreign invader, it will eventually begin to wind down. At that point, some of the plasma cells, the antibody-producing cells, will undergo apoptosis because they're no longer needed. The remaining cells will move to the bone marrow and continue to produce antibodies, which will be used for future immunity. This slide shows a summary of both processes. If you look at cellular or cell-mediated, we have the exposure to the antigen, and then the T cell is going to bind to that antigen and activate other T cells, which in turn are going to wake up the macrophages, and they in turn will act like cytotoxic T cells, or will break down and consume either through phagocytosis or apoptosis these target cells and kill them. If we go over here to the humoral immune system, there's our antigens. They activate the B cells, which in turn will work with the T cells and create the plasma cells and the memory cells. That plasma cell over here will produce the antibody, or it will become a memory cell. That memory cell is going to be used for, as they say, secondary encounters or future immune issues. If you go back over here to our cell-mediated, we have those helper T cells. Remember I told you that if the B cells aren't activated, the T cells will do that and will activate the system and get it started. The last thing I want to cover is the idea of the immune response as a whole. I've talked about it quite a bit throughout the cells, but I want to kind of summarize it. That first encounter that the body has with a foreign invader, a foreign antigen, is called the primary immune response, because it's the first time the body has seen and had to defend against this invader. Because it's the primary response, there are only a few B or T cells in the body that can recognize that antigen and respond. This means that the response is going to be slow and not very effective. As a result of this response, though, memory cells are going to be created. A second encounter with this foreign antigen would be the secondary immune response. in this case, we have memory cells that have actually seen this antigen before, know what antibody is needed, and therefore can recognize the response necessary. This makes the response faster and more effective. This is the end of our second part of the human survey system, the immune system.